In this tutorial, we're going to look at using numeric operators to add, subtract, divide and multiply two numbers. I've gone ahead and I've set up some variables, a HMI button for addition, a HMI button for subtraction, multiplication and division, and I've assigned them working memory word 0, byte 1, 2, 3 and 0 there for addition. I've also gone ahead and set up two variables, value 1 and value 2, a total and a grand total. So in this project we're going to set up a simple HMI as we did in the lab, and we're going to take two values, value 1 and value 2, and we're either going to take them away from each other, add them to each other, multiply them from each other, or divide them from each other. We're also going to have a grand total, and the grand total will change depending on which of these four buttons we select. For example, if I add 5 and 5 together, so value 1 is 5 and value 2 is 5, the total will be 10 and the grand total will be 10. If I press addition again, 5 and 5, the total is still 10, but now the grand total is 20. There is another video where I go into more detail about floating points, where I give a better explanation of this. So let's start with some code. In section 1, I'm going to take a contactor and I'm going to assign that to HMI addition. I'm going to go insert a new instruction, and remember to put the ampersand in front for the differential, and I'm going to use plus, and it's going to be space value 1 space value 2 space total, and OK. So now when someone presses the HMI button addition, value 1 and value 2 will be added together and the result will be inserted into memory address associated with total, which, if I go back to my symbols, in this case is working bit 14, or word 14. Okay, so once that's done, I now need to upgrade my grand total, so I'm going to add another instruction. In this case, I'm going to add again, and it's going to be the total, and I'm going to put that into grand total. A space, and remember from before that the output of these two, so the addition of total to grand total, we want to output that back into grand total. And we go OK. So that's my addition done. So I'm now going to do the same for subtraction. So I'm just going to copy that rung, and I'm going to change this to subtraction. And I'm going to change this to subtraction. So for subtraction, I'm going to want to minus value 1 from value 2, and I'm going to want to minus that off the total. So I'll change this to minus as well. With that done, I'm going to go ahead and do the same for multiplication and division. So I've added two additional rungs, one for multiplication, and I've added the star. So value 1 multiplied by value 2 goes into the total, and the total is then added to the grand total. I've also added a rung for division. In this case, I'm going to divide value 1 from value 2, take that off the total, and put it into a grand total. There is a complication here which you should realize during the lab, but we'll go through that later when we're talking about dividing numbers. So that's my four rungs done, and I have multiplication, division, subtraction and addition all dealt with. Now we're going to go ahead and create a HMI in CX Designer. So I've created a very basic HMI there. I have four buttons: plus, minus, multiply and divide. I have my value 1, my value 2, the total, and then the grand total. So let's go ahead and copy across my symbols from my symbol library. Control C, and go into the common settings, symbol library, and let's add them to the PLC. I use the standard HMI template for this particular one, and I've changed the background color to white just to make it look a little bit better. So let's go ahead and assign the different variables to the buttons. So for addition, that's going to be addition. The subtraction button, and multiplication, and then division. Let's assign value 1. So we go to general, and under address here, we're going to select value 1. And then for this one, it's going to be value 2. And also on total, I've gone into control flags and I've disabled it because you shouldn't be able to input anything into the total. And the grand total, again, under the control flags, it's disabled. And we're going to put that to grand total. So that's my HMI setup. So let's run this and see what happens. So our simulation is up and running. So let's check our different functions. First of all, let's add. So let's add 5 plus 5. So 5 plus 5 is 10. And the total is 10, and the grand total is 10, 20, 30. So let's take 5 from 5. 5 by 5 is 0, but as you can see, each time I press this, it's changing the sign. So we need to deal with that. So let's look at our multiplication. So 5 by this time is 2, so the total of that is 10, and 40 gets added. 50, 60. Okay, so far my addition is working, my subtraction isn't, and my multiplication is. What about my division? Let's divide 5 by 2. So 5 goes into 2, or 2 goes into 5 twice with a remainder of 0.5. But as you can see, our number here is going up in 2s because we're not dealing with the remainder. There's a completely separate video on this looking at floating points, but I'll give a brief description later on. But so far, all I need to deal with is this changing sign. So let's look at our code again for our subtraction. It takes value 1 from value 2 and puts down the resulting word, which is total. It then takes total from the grand total, and this isn't working. Well, the reason for that is it depends on which way we use these two numbers. Let me show you using the calculator. So value 1 is 5 minus value 2. The total is 3. So then 3 minus the total. So the total is 3 minus the grand total. So let's say our grand total is 40. So it's 3 minus 40 equals minus 37. So that's why our value keeps going between minuses and pluses. So let's do that calculation the other way around. In this case, let's make our value 1 2 minus 5, and this equals minus 3. So minus 3 is the total, and we're going to minus that from the grand total, which I said was 40, which is minus 43. Let's run that again, and now it's minus 83. So what we need to do is we need to determine whether it's a plus or a minus. So to do that, we're going to add a new rung, and we're going to use a new instruction, the less than instruction. So the less than instruction will be less than space total 0. So is total less than 0? Do something. And in this case, what we want total less than 0 to do is to plus total to the grand total and back into the grand total. In the case where it's greater than 0, we want to take grand total away from total. And one last thing before we leave CX Programmer, I'm just going to delete this. So now the HMI subtraction button just does value 1 from value 2 back into the total. So let's check this out in our HMI. So back in my simulation, let's put in our values. 5 plus 5, 10, 20, 30. Let's take 5 from 5, and the answer to that is 0, and our grand total doesn't change at all. So let's take 5 by 2. That's 3, and it's minusing 3 off each time. And let's do 2 by 5. It's minus 3. It's still minusing 3 off, and the sign isn't changing. Let's just check our multiplication. So 5 by 2, and that's 10, and it's going up in tens. And then 2 by 5, and that's going up in tens. And let's just try our division, and that's still not working. Okay, so remember, the division we're going to look at in more detail in the floating point video, but for now that's the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching.